New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is out. He resigned yesterday in the wake of a report that found he violated state and federal sexual harassment laws, capping months of speculation over his fate. In a press conference, Mr. Cuomo said the Attorney General's report and an impeachment probe had become a distraction. He said his resignation would become effective in 14 days and that Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, a Democrat, would succeed him. In-depth analysis now from Jeff Guillot, Democratic strategist in New York and founding partner of Millennial Strategist. Jeff, your reaction?
I think the governor was a dead man walking as soon as the Attorney General published that very damning and very credible report, and I think it became abundantly clear that this was imminent. Right around the time last week when President Biden said that the governor should step aside, and he has every right to try to figure out, what his best option may have been, or if there was a deal to be made with the legislature to avoid impeachment. But clearly there wasn't. Clearly there is simply no appetite among the state legislature, among other office holders, and among perhaps his own staff, for him to remain in power. And as a result, you got the incredible and really, really interesting statement that you saw from him today.
All right. So what kind you reference it? What kind of deal could have been struck with the legislature, for example?
Well, there were rumors that the governor was looking to cut a deal to avoid impeachment, remain in office, and not run for re-election. Trying to use his seat as collateral to be able to probably give the legislature more power going into the next session. Right, a lame duck governor going into an election year, could have been through some prisms valuable to the state legislature, but there was simply no appetite for that. Quite frankly, I think that if you were to have held an impeachment vote this morning at 9 a.m., the vote might have been 150 to nothing. There was just no confidence in moving forward.
He had kind of this puzzling statement in his news conference saying, in my mind, I've never crossed the line, but I didn't realize the extent to which the line has been redrawn. Was that a tacit admission of guilt?
I think it was a tacit admission of guilt. I mean, you got to understand, too, that, if this discourse plays out the way that it normally would, and if the justice system does what it's supposed to do, it's very likely the governor is going to face civil lawsuits, perhaps from all 11 victims, and perhaps from, I heard there were 2 more coming forward yesterday. So he has to be very, very careful with the words he uses in public, because they may be used against him later on in court. So I'm sure that part of the statement was very carefully drafted by his outside counsel, and perhaps the governor's closest advisors, to best inoculate him from whatever comes next.
What does this mean? This is not his first scandal. What does this mean for the Democratic Party in general, say in New York State?
Well, I think the party itself, is going to soldier on. It would seem that at least initially, there is confidence that Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul can at least manage the ship of state for the time being. But I don't think there's any way that the party is able to avoid a contentious June primary next year for governor. And if the sitting Attorney General, Letitia James, chooses to run for governor, then you're going to have, for the third time in the last 11 or 12 years, an open seat Democratic primary for Attorney General, which in itself could be an event where you have 5 candidates and $30 million spent. I mean, so look for some violence on the Democratic side between now and the June primary. But at the end of the day, New York is such a solidly Democratic state.
Thanks, Jeff. Jeff Guillot, Democratic strategist in New York. Coming up next, Labor Day.